Welcome to Navigating the Abyss. We are Teri and Catherine, two necessarily trauma-informed moms who, through our own journeys, were inspired to become conscious parenting coaches. We are here to share our ongoing learning and insights in the hope of bringing some new perspectives and clarity for parents who might be on similar paths. We hope you'll join us.
Hello everybody, and in this episode today we're going to be talking about the very common and distressing occurrence that happens when our children are having big feelings, when they're upset, when they're dysregulated, and we just don't know what to do. We're going to base this on some personal examples of our own, and we really hope that you're going to take what you need from this episode. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We're back again. Thank you for joining us. We did 2 introductory episodes where we talked about our own stories and our challenges with our kids and a little bit about what we've learned and where we are now. And then we thought we would do the next few episodes really highlighting some key themes and related tools and resources that we've been dealing with over the past years, and that we thought would be important just in terms of building a foundation around how you deal with your child when they're in crisis.
I think the thing we came up with today was a simple question, which is, what do you do when your young person is ... And first and foremost, I think what came up for both of us is, what do you do when your child is dealing with difficult emotions, when your child is perhaps dysregulated? Yeah, what's the first thing that comes up for you? I mean, I've got plenty, so if you want me to start, I can.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, well, I've got the before and after story, which might be helpful for people. Certainly, dealing with my young person's difficult emotions was not something that came easily to me early on. I was unable to really even acknowledge or recognize my own challenging emotions. I didn't have the tools to even know how I felt. So when I had a young person that came home in crisis, screaming, shouting, just desperately upset, we were in a seemingly catastrophic situation, and I did not know how to hold space for that. It was so uncomfortable for me. When I think back, all I wanted to do was run. I wanted to go out and I wanted to fix everything. I needed to get in touch with everybody that was causing this to happen and stop it. That was my go-to. Now, I have gradually gathered some tools to kind of really tune in to what goes on for me in those moments. And it's not to say they don't still happen. Fortunately, we're out of the hugely catastrophic zone at this point in our lives. But I will say, back then, by not being able to be there for my young person, in the sense of being able to just sit and be in that space with them so that they knew that it was okay to have all of these big feelings, the end result was that they shut down on me. They went inside. They made it all about them. And I got very unwell trying to go out and fix the problem on the outside. So today, the way I might show up would be just to be in that space with my young person, actually listen to them when they tell me what they need. Often my daughter will say, I just want to be on my own. I used to have a huge problem with that. I want to be on my own. So sometimes it is about just giving them that space. And maybe wanting to be on your own might be, you can be here, but don't have any kind of agenda or expectations on me. Yeah.
And so it sounds a lot, though, from what you're saying, is that what you learned was how to deal with your own emotions.
Yeah, first and foremost, that was my first.
Yeah. Key. And what did that look like?
Learning to deal with my own emotions was actually about getting quiet. I couldn't understand what it was that I was feeling or have any idea or experience of myself until I got quiet. One of the first things that I learned with Dr. Shafali was taking my time to actually get in touch with my own, very well hidden dysregulation. Because I don't know about you, as a parent, I got really good at masking everything, because I figured as long as I'm not upset or emotional in front of my child, then they're not going to have an experience of me that way. But I got to know that wasn't true.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because I think we are often taught to say the right things. And if we, on the outside, if our appearance looks somewhat calm and we're saying what we feel are helpful words, then we're doing our job. But underneath it, it's the energy that we're conveying. And the kids pick up on it,
I
right? So
think,
underneath it, they know that we're fearful, that we're anxious, that we don't believe that they can find their way out of the hole that they're in. All those things are conveyed.
yeah,
So if you don't do that work, then despite what you're saying, the energy will be saying something very different.
just because you show up with a smile on your face or even a really calm exterior, that is not what, I mean, we're all animals, right? Animals pick up on energy. And, my child absolutely picked up on the idea that there was something wrong with me. And then I learned by her checking me out in energetically, seeing that I was anxious, or experiencing me as anxious, meant that she felt there's something up with me. I'm making mum anxious. My behavior is making mum anxious.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Mm.
So, yeah, I can share, similarly, I mean, I can remember about 4 or 5 years ago when things were really just starting, but when my daughter would get very dysregulated and feel marginalized and friendless, and that the world was crumbling down around her, and be screaming and yelling and throwing things. And immediately my reaction was, fear. Sometimes I would get angry, say things like, you know, it's not true. I would, because of my fear, invalidate what she was saying because, it's not true. You have friends, you have this is happening. You're not looking in the positive side, all the things, right?
Yeah.
And it would make it worse. She would then feel not heard.
Right.
There was no one that was able to see what she was going through. She was sensing my anxiety, and so she was carrying that as well, not only her own but also her mother's,
Right.
which certainly contributes to things. And I was looking for all the external ways to fix things, talking to the school, finding the perfect therapist, finding who I needed to talk to who could make things better.
Yeah, for sure. And I, as you're speaking, the thing that I'm reminded of is that finger on the lip again. How did that show up for you? And what was the turning point? I'm wondering all of the time when we want to make things better, or we want to say, no, 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 it isn't like that. It doesn't have to be this way. What shifted for you? What was
Well, I think, yeah, it was, I mean, I can give an example now how I deal with things, in that first thing, I know that she needs to feel connected. So, and she needs to feel that her emotions are justified, that she is welcome to express them.
How does she do that? How does that happen?
Well, this last weekend, for example, she's been really upset about a relationship issue and a lot of sadness and some anger. And so it's just simply, as you're saying, staying quiet, just showing that I'm listening to what she's saying, not trying to change how she's feeling, not trying to argue with any of her points, just even if I don't agree, just allowing so that she feels heard. Which is really important. And the other thing, that we learned with Shefali was around the pause. So really, before I have to say something, if there's something I need to do or say, I really stop, take the pause, breathe, go for a walk, whatever I need to do, and then come back and respond from a wiser part of myself, not the scared and anxious part. So, which might look like, can I give you some feedback? Can I share something from my life? Can I, whatever, and see if she's open to it. She may be, and she may not be, but asking that permission is important.
I was going to say, do you mind me asking what happens when she says that she's not open?
Okay, I just say it's fine. It's okay.
It's hard for us though, right? Because even with all of that wisdom, we've taken a pause, we've taken a walk, and then we've come back and we've offered something, and we've really taken the time to consider, I'm going to ask you if it's okay, and then you get a no. I mean,
Right, because that's our, we put time into it. We're attached to that
yeah,
nugget of wisdom that we have to convey,
yeah,
and we feel let down. But you
right.
have to remember that it's not about you,
Not
and
about
it's
you.
not about your ego. It's simply showing up in with a lot of clarity and a lot of groundedness.
Yeah,
Right. And also I think what's helped me a lot too is this recognition that it has to be her path.
right.
And she
Sovereignty.
has to have agency in her life.
Mm,
And so that learning and that experience that she is going through, even though it's painful, and even though I am sure some part of me thinks I am sure I could have prevented all of this, she
mhm.
needs to learn that. She needs to learn it for herself. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that recognition is that our job is not to save them or prevent life from happening for them is super useful.
Absolutely, and that brings me straight to a bit of Dr. Gawamate's wisdom, which is, when you're dealing with your children, it's not about what happens to them. Anything could happen. The most terrible things can happen to them, God forbid. But, life goes on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The most important part, to avoid any kind of traumatization in that person, is that they have somebody to connect to, somebody they feel safe that they can talk to, that they can open up to, regardless of whether we like it or not. How are we showing up in terms of them feeling heard? Everything that you've just said, seen, understood, and allowed to express. Yeah.
Yeah. And validating their emotions.
Validating their
We don't
emotions.
have to validate their behavior
No,
if it's, but it's different, but the emotions need to be validated.
that's such an important point. So tell me a little bit about how you would validate their emotions.
Well, sometimes I know a lot of us experience this, she'll be angry doesn't like something that we're doing. Like right now, the thing is, she doesn't like the curfew because she's turned 18
Right.
and she's angry and so I understand that. I understand that a young person that turns 18 feels I need to have more freedom. I get all that. And it's real.
Yeah, it's very real. Mm-hmm.
And there's also that she's living in a house. There needs to be certain structure.
Mm-hmm.
Her dad needs to be able to go to work, get up at 5:30 in the morning, all these things. And that's part of living in a family, living in a community.
Yeah.
And so certain behavior, then not coming home or screaming and yelling and being disrespectful, that isn't okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But the emotions are okay.
yeah, I hear that, and I think about functioning within the home and creating a safe container. Doesn't necessarily need to be about having a ton of rules, but those boundaries that are concrete are so important. Here is what really, really matters, and the unshiftable boundaries. And here's a few that we can shift from time to time. Because we pick our battles, right, for want of a better expression. But those set in stone boundaries that are all about health, safety, and well-being, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now boundaries that's probably a whole nother
It's another podcast
another
altogether.
podcast. But very important. I
Mm,
mean, I'm just wondering, so Teri, if we can pull out from our conversation like the key takeaways.
let's do that. Yeah. So first thing
Yeah,
I heard you talk about was the pause. I
the
mentioned
pause.
I mentioned stillness, actually getting in touch with my emotions, was all about stillness and having some space, because in that space it was gathering some perspective. I heard you talking about maybe going out for a walk, getting out in nature. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was the first one that came to me. That
Yeah,
was
and sometimes after that pause, it can because sometimes we don't have the luxury of going for a walk because we're right in the middle of it, right?
yeah,
But it can be anything that we're takes us away from the focus on that emotion. So it can be just feeling the ground under your feet.
yeah,
It can be, unclenching and clenching your fists. It can be taking some deep breaths. So I think different people have different strategies, but finding something that works for you that you can try. and see if it will just shift things for you internally enough for you to come from a different place.
Yeah, sometimes I've been in situations, and funnily a visual comes to me as you say that, when, you know, I've been outside the bathroom door, really concerned about what's going on the other side of the door, and yet not able to leave, and really needing to find some stillness within me. And it's been just one breath, but one really deep, conscious breath in and out. It's been enough. You know, what happens in those few short seconds is it creates a huge shift. It takes us out of that immediate reactivity and gives us the ability to find a response.
Right. Yeah, there's the Viktor Frankl quote, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Yeah. In our response lies our growth and freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing I would like people to take away, it's that.
Yeah, 100%. It is that.
Right.
It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot. And yet it's monumental. It's a seismic shift that can occur in just those few seconds.
Yeah. And the other thing I think we talked about too is responsibility. We are not responsible for our children's emotions.
No.
We're not responsible for making them feel better.
I love that word too, responsibility. I think it was Michael Brown from the process that broke it down to response and ability. We have the ability to respond in the way that we choose to. We're not responsible for our children's emotion, but we are responsible for how we respond to their emotions.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you think is really important about?
Yeah, you know what I noticed as well, we didn't talk about it specifically, but I think it's sewn into everything that we've said here, is noticing the energy of a young person. We talked about our own energy and how we show up and what they experience of us, but actually giving them the space to speak, to be heard, to be understood, to feel validated, can very often come easier when we just take a moment to recall being that age, and even if we can't put ourselves into that, and that's a visualization, but it's a powerful one. I've done it many times just to understand. Very often we find that the patterns that are repeating were ours of that age anyway, right? So that's a whole other episode too. But actually, just for a moment, maybe in that conscious pause, just taking a second to recognize how they're experiencing us in that moment. What does our energy look like coming at them in that moment? And it is a bit of it can be a meditation, and it's always worth taking a bit of time to do that if you get a window of opportunity to do that. So yeah, noticing what's happening for them.
And I think it's, very related to what we talked about in terms of holding space for them and allowing them to feel seen, to really feel seen and heard.
Yeah, and respected. Right?
With no agenda.
Zero agenda. Yeah.
I mean, how rare is that parents really are just with their kids, just listening and knowing that the only agenda and the most important priority is just to listen. I think that gets to what we were saying earlier about energy, and so much is conveyed without words.
Without words, yeah.
And we're conditioned to believe that doesn't exist or it's not happening, but it actually very much is.
It sounds like a phenomena, doesn't it? The idea that somebody can actually have an experience of our energy before we believe we've even transmitted anything. And I understand these days that it's not about what I say, it's actually about authenticity. It's like, how am I feeling? And then
we're getting into all sorts of things about communication, but I think authenticity is critical, because I think sometimes, you don't want to say something to set them off, but they're already feeling it. It's okay to share, I'm afraid. It's okay to share, I'm angry. It's okay to share your real emotions, because that teaches them that it's okay.
I remember my child coming to me when she was very small, and it was at the point where she was going through a difficult time and she started biting her hands a lot. And there was one particular time she actually punched herself. She punched herself in the face. And I remember being at the bottom of the stairs, and I looked at her and I was crying. And she walked up to me and she touched my face. She said, "Mummy, you're crying." And I said, "Yes, darling, I am." She said, but I thought you were angry at me. And I was like, no, I'm really upset. But can you see how I've been showing up? Because the anger was at myself. I was so frustrated and angry that I didn't know how to handle the situation, that she was hurting herself, and I was confused. And that's all that she'd picked up.
I think that's really common, actually. I think it's really common because they don't, at that age, they don't understand that our emotions a lot of it are directed at ourselves and our sense of lack. So of course they're going to think it's all about their behavior.
And of course, a limited understanding of vocabulary for emotions as well. If I don't understand my emotions, how the hell is she? So she's just got angry. Well, that's the only word she had to describe. Beautiful. Wow.
Well, thank you, Teri. It's a good conversation.
I think so. I hope it's going to be helpful for somebody out there.
Yeah, I hope so too. Right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye. Okay, here's the legal stuff. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We are not licensed therapists, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. See you next time.